The Wild West has always had heroes, villains, and those guys who stand by and run first when trouble arises. No legends were made about them, and no films were made about them. So Albert Stark had to tell his story himself. Albert was a coward. When he had to shoot himself in the central square, he swooped down and played a shadow game, and subsequently did everything to resolve the dispute peacefully. However, the enemy still shot him in the leg, leaving a shallow scratch there. He went to show her to the doctor. At this point, Utogo was undergoing surgery, and while the doctor was working on Stark's scratch, his cat stole part of the patient's intestines. The doctor suggested that Albert's leg be removed up to the knee because the scratch looked serious, but Stark wisely refused. But it would be better if his leg was cut off, because after an unsuccessful duel, a young woman, big-eyed Louise, abandoned him. Albert was terribly upset because he liked her big eyes so much. However, Louise did not want to spend her life with some shepherd, and a cowardly one at that. So she said she had to take care of herself and left. At this moment, Albert's best friend, Edward, was waiting for his beloved Ruth. She worked in a brothel and indulged in the rudeness of men 15 times a day. At the same time, she and Eddie were terribly religious and decided not to make love before marriage. When Ruth finished processing her next client, she went for a walk with her fiancé. In the evening, they arrived at Albert's. He was sat on the porch, looking at old photographs. It was unusual for them to smile in photographs, so Stark and Louise stood on the pillars and looked into the camera. To cheer up their friend a little, Eddie and Ruth took him to the salon. But then Albert went on a tirade about how dangerous it was to live in the Wild West. Everyone here wants to kill you, and you can't even go to the bathroom properly because there might be a rattlesnake lurking in there. Moreover, the body of the local mayor has been lying on the street for a long time, and the only ones who paid attention to it were the wolves. They dragged the corpse behind the houses and ate it. To drown his grief, Albert gets drunk and goes to see Louise, but she throws her ex over the fence. After this conversation, Stark lost his last hope. Not far from the city where Albert lived, miners worked. One of them had found gold and was now going to the city to exchange it for money. Clinch Leatherwood and his gang went out to meet the old man. They asked him for directions and then took the gold and killed him. Clinch needs to calm down for a while, so he and the gang go in one direction and send his wife Anna along with Lewis to the former stump. Stark lives in this city. Anna takes with her a promising dog named Dodic. Clinch promises to come for Anna after a while. After breaking up with Louise, Albert completely neglected himself. He even stopped shearing the sheep, and they turned into giant balls of wool. Eddie came to support his friend, but things didn't go well for him. Although after talking with him, Stark still decided to go out into the city. Then he met a beautiful girl in a store and assumed that she liked strange eccentrics. So Albert approached her to meet her, but Penny turned him down. Stark then went on another date, and then another, but all were unsuccessful. Of course, he had a chance to meet a 9-year-old girl who was urgently looking for a husband, so as not to become an old maid, but Albert decided not to risk it. Sometime later, Stark's mother died. He did not grieve much because he had a cool relationship with his parents, especially his father. After the funeral, Albert went into town to see how ice was being delivered, but what he saw was not at all what he expected. Louise was fooling around with a mustache shop owner named Wait, Foy. Stark also looked the ice. True, a block fell on the worker and crushed his head. A spectacle, of course, but still more pleasant than watching Foy and Louise kiss. After this, all the residents gathered in the church, where the pastor introduced the new residents, Anna and Lewis. They introduced themselves as brother and sister. After the church service, Albert went to Foy's store and pretended to try to grow a mustache, but Foy knew Stark couldn't afford it and humiliated him. In the evening, an angry Albert came to the salon, where his friends, as well as Anna and Lewis, were already relaxing. Raph had just satisfied another horny man, and Eddie began to talk about their intimacy. When he offers to sleep, Raph is hostile to his words, since she wants to preserve her virginity until marriage. Albert interrupts the love conversation. He tells his friends that he will leave this wasteland. At that moment, Lewis got into a fight with the priest's son in a bar and killed him. A huge fight broke out, and to avoid getting punched in the face by Eddie and Alberta, they started fighting each other in the street. Then Albert noticed that Anna was in danger and rushed to save her. They found themselves outside and walked around for a bit. Anna saw Albert eating something and asked him to talk about his problems. Stark spoke openly about his relationship with Louise, and Anna supported him. To make Louise jealous, Anna invited them to come to the fair together. Lewis was thrown into prison, and it came to him in prison to gloat. Besides, he could now act without fear that Lewis would tell Clinch everything. The city fair turned out to be a creepy place. Every year someone dies here. This time the photographer and his two victims, that is, models, went to another world. Following them, the owner of the potion store flew to their fathers. While Anna and Albert stood in line to see the photographer, Anna remembered a rumor that somewhere there was a photograph of a smiling man. Stark didn't believe it, because only a truly crazy person could smile in the photograph. After the fire show at the photographer's, Anna and Albert meet with Louise and Foy. True, it was impossible to make Louise jealous. And then Stark and Foy went to measure out their songs at the shooting range. But then it turns out that Anna has the biggest song, because when Albert misses, she knocks out all the targets and earns Stark a whole $1. No one had seen this strange piece of paper in the Wild West, and the inhabitants of the old stump were delighted. After being defeated by the woman, Foy began to taunt Albert, who became very angry. Out of emotion, he even challenged Yuzatov to a duel. They decided to shoot themselves a week later. As the anger subsided, Stark realized he had done something stupid. He was ready to refuse, but Anna promised to teach him to shoot. Then he could defeat Foy. However, Albert turns out to be a bad student. He failed to hit the target, even when he got close to it. But Anna did not despair, because she had a spare one. When practice was over, Anna happily shared the cookies with her new friend. Alberta was so covered in it that it seemed like the Gophers could read his mind. Meanwhile, Clinch and his gang committed another robbery and made a fortune. Anna dressed in the latest fashion and came to Albert's dance. When they started dancing, Foy convinced the musicians to sing a song about mustaches and dance Stark in a trash can. Having won another victory, he went to gloat with Louise, but then Anna appeared. Foy and Albert have a duel tomorrow, so she adds mustache laxative to the whiskey. This was her backup plan. Anna and Stark then retreated and spent a romantic evening together. In gratitude for everything she does for him, Albert gives his friend a photograph of a smiling madman. Anna liked the gift, and she and Albert kissed. He then sent her to a hotel and kissed her again. That night, Lewis escaped from prison. He saw some sheep farmer drooling on his boss's wife, and he didn't like it. Returning home, Albert noticed strange flashes in the blacksmith's barn. Inside, he saw this same blacksmith, and he was clearly hiding something. But, apparently, there was nothing interesting under the awning, so Albert simply left, leaving Doc Brown to wait for Marty to arrive. Before going to bed, Louise began to please Foy by sucking on his mustache. But then the poor guy felt bad, and he ran to the toilet to relieve himself. So he ran until dawn. Foy continued to run to the bathroom, even during the duel. He used the spectators' hats only as a toilet. Albert refused to shoot him. And not because Foy ruined his reputation by messing with two hats, but because Stark no longer needs Louise. In the best Marty McFly tradition, he lowered his gun and walked away. Albert went to visit Anna, but she was not at the hotel. Clinch picked her up this morning. Having learned from Lewis about his wife's betrayal, he got angry and decided to find out who this Albert Stark was. To do this, he came to the salon when Albert and Eddie were relaxing here. Realizing that Anna was Clinch's wife, Stark froze. As a deterrent, Clinch even killed Ryan Reynolds so that he would not have time to save the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the help of the third part of Deadpool. After this speech, Albert rushed home to pack his things, and Clinch left with his wife to exchange marital debts. Anna decided that she had paid off her debts and interest, so she knocked Clinch out and decorated his pot with a wildflower. She then went to Albert to warn him of the danger. But Stark was already skiing. He was angry at Anna for not admitting who she was. However, he did not have to be angry for long, because Clinch arrived with his gang. Albert sent Anna to hide while he distracted the thugs. He led them to the railway and jumped into the carriage. After getting off the train, Stark found himself on Indian land, where he was knocked out and tied up. Meanwhile, Eddie convinced Ruth to make great and pure love. But at night, when they were already preparing to lose their virginity, Anna burst into them. She was hiding from Clinch, but he still found her. When Albert woke up, the Indians were about to burn him at the stake. But Stark spoke their language, so they agreed to listen to him. Albert told about his adventures, and the Redskins offered to drink a magic potion. This way he will know what to do next. The breeder grabbed the potion over the edge so as not to get stuck like a child. He remembered his whole life from the moment of birth, and then saw how he married Anna. Toward the end of this drug trip, he hit a huge bird in the balls with Clinch's face. Upon learning of this, the Indians declared that Stark had real courage. Albert knew that Clinch would be waiting for him in the town square, so he went there. He never learned to shoot accurately, so when the duel began, he only wounded Clinch. However, this was enough because Albert laced the bullet with rattlesnake venom. It killed the villain. Realizing that her ex killed the toughest gangster in the area, Louise wants to take revenge on him, but Albert gives her the go-ahead. He decided to connect his life with Anna. He received a reward for killing Clinch. Stark used the money to buy sheep. Now he had a whole sea of curly hair. In the post-credits scene, a relaxed Django approaches an ancient tree stump to shoot at a fairground shooting range. When he was offered to photograph the figure of a runaway slave, Django shot the owner of the shooting gallery and left, demanding that a white woman be brought to him. What does this give? It's not that I don't know, but it's not that I know either. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.